Hello there, and welcome to Slooh, your interface to outer space. I'm Jerry Monter. I'm your host. Our mission today will capture asteroid 2012 TC4 in our telescopes. Now, don't let its dull name fool you. As we speak, this space rock is making a very close approach to Earth, speeding between the planet and our satellite belt. In a few minutes, Slooh astronomer Paul Cox will join us with live feeds of the asteroid from our telescopes at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. Now, Paul will be sharing some background on this space rock and its very colorful family. Slooh's Director of Research, Dr. Paige Godfrey, will join us to discuss why we know so little about this asteroid and its trajectory. And of course, the big question, is this asteroid a threat to planet Earth? Arts and culture correspondent Tricia Ennis will be shining a light on the less than stellar reputation that asteroids have in our culture and the different ways creative minds have been inspired by these celestial rogues. We're also thrilled to feature an interview with British writer and astronomer Pippa Goldschmidt. Now, we've wanted to introduce her work to Slooh members for some time now. Our show on this near-Earth asteroid provided the ideal occasion for it. Ideal as Goldschmidt's fictional take on just this type of scenario, a short story from her collection, The Need for Better Regulation of Outer Space, shines a light on the human impulses behind the science. Now, we're able to reprint her wonderful story, How Accurate Do You Need to Be to Get On in Life? Thanks to Dr. Goldschmidt's generosity and that of her publisher, Freight Books. We're also featuring an interview with her on the website about her unique perspective as a scientist and a writer. It's a thought-provoking piece that you will not want to miss. Eve Pollitt and Anna Sophia Martin from the cultural foresight agency Sparks and Honey will join us with some insight into why space is currently trending and just why asteroids are helping to drive that. Dr. Godfrey will come back at the end of the show with an update on Slooh's own near-Earth asteroid monitoring program and how you could get involved. Yes, you too can be an asteroid hunter. And don't forget, if you have any questions for our team, just tweet them to us using the hashtag Slooh. All right, let's get started. First up, Paul Cox. Welcome to the show, my friend. We're going to pull up the live feed now from Slooh's flagship observatory at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands. So set the scene for us, Paul. What are we looking at?
Well, tonight, Jerry, we are going to get down and dirty with an asteroid, not just any asteroid. This one is a near-Earth asteroid discovered in 2012, you said, and this name 2012 TC4. Now, this thing orbits the sun every 609 days. And this is not the first time that Slooh's tracked it. We did track it back in 2012. But this one is one of 16,744 near-Earth asteroids that are known this morning. That figure changes every single day when we get up. And this particular one is between 50 and 100 feet. We're going to know a little bit better how big it is tomorrow when the Goldstone radio telescope actually takes some images of it. But it was discovered by the it was picked up again when it started coming into the solar system again, into our region of the solar system, by the Very Large Telescope in Hawaii, when it was 37 million miles away from Earth. Now, you needed a telescope that big, 8 meters, to be able to get it. But tonight, we're watching it through the telescopes that Slooh members use every night, and it's making its very close approach to Earth in a few hours' time, and it's going to be coming within 26,000 miles of Earth's surface, Jerry. This diagram that we're looking at here, there's the asteroid passing. All of those blue and yellow things, those are our satellites, our artificial satellites. So it gives you this kind of context of just how close it's coming to Earth. Another way of looking at it is it's going to be coming as close to Earth as 3 Earth diameters. Now, that's an absolute stone's throw in astronomical terms. And the other astonishing piece of information about this is its speed. It's traveling at 7.65 kilometers per second. Now, in old money, Jerry, that's 17,000 miles per hour. All right, now, you know, I'm a car freak. My goodness, I love figures like that. But what we're going to be seeing through our live streams tonight, we're looking for a line. as the asteroid moves against the background stars during each exposure. Now you can see here, this is the observatory that we're looking at. The skies over these, and that kind of witchy, that's a cool thing for Halloween, isn't it? That kind of strange object going across the screen there, that is actually a cloud. So we are fighting clouds, we're fighting very strong winds as well. But what viewers have got to keep an eye open for in all of our live image streams tonight is a line. You'll see all of the fixed stars behind, and you'll see a dashed line, and that's the asteroid moving at this incredibly fast. There it is. There's our first live image, Jerry. And that line that we can see just left of center, that's the asteroid moving. That's how far it moves during the exposure, which is only 60 seconds long on these incredibly sensitive CCD cameras, which is actually in this instance attached to our half-meter telescope. And this is what Slooh members control every night. Now, I do want to say, Jerry, if viewers are watching at slooh.com, they can switch between all of our live feeds. We've got all of the telescopes trained on this asteroid tonight. So viewers out there, snap as many images and share those images that you get with your social networks.
Oh, it's fascinating, Paul. Okay, a question about the lingo involved here. Why are we calling this an asteroid, not a comet or a meteor?
Yeah, it can get a bit confusing, all this stuff. But generally, asteroids are rocky or metallic bodies, and they don't have an atmosphere of their own. The main population of them, they're in a region of space between the planets Mars and Jupiter, and that's called the main asteroid belt. But some asteroids even have their own moons orbiting them as well. And we first learned about the presence of asteroid moons in 1993. And here you can see the observation. This was taken by the Galileo space probe in 1993 as it flew by asteroid Ida and captured its moon Dactyl, which itself is nearly a mile in diameter. But you know, every once in a while, just like our target 2012, there it is again, TC4 tonight, these asteroids get perturbed and exit the asteroid belt and go for a little bit of an excursion. And when their orbits bring them close to Earth, they're categorized as near-Earth asteroids, Jerry. Now, comets, on the other hand, usually large bodies that contain a lot of volatile substances like water, ice, and rock and dust. And that's why they leave their big trails. Now, they reside in the outer reaches of the solar system, forming a kind of shell that envelops the entire solar system called the Oort cloud. But when it comes to meteors, meteoroids, and meteorites, the only change there, they're all the same object. It just depends where they are. And there's a post actually in our community content that all of our viewers can take a look at and will explain exactly what the difference is of all of those. And that will be quite good because we're coming in, of course, to meteor watching season as well.
All right, Paul, a little history lesson, if you please. When were asteroids first discovered? And how?
History. Okay, history, not a top subject for me at school. It was a bit geekier than that. But the first, and it's also the largest asteroid, was called 1 Ceres. And that was discovered in 1801 by, it was an astronomer called Giuseppe Piazzi. And he actually thought that he'd discovered a new planet. He actually named it after their king at the time, but it was later renamed to Ceres. Now, when other similar objects were discovered, they appeared as a point of light, you know, just like the stars, although they move just like we're seeing this one tonight, which is very unlike stars. And that's where the name asteroid comes from, which is pretty cool. It means star-like. And that word, actually, I know you're a bit of a myth, Jerry. It's got a really interesting backstory. Some people might think it's a bit of a dry topic, but the etymology of the word asteroid, it kind of offers a little bit of a portal into a bit of a mystery, and it involves one of my astronomy heroes who discovered Uranus from my own home city, Bath, just down the road from where I'm sitting now. In March 1781, that was when he discovered Uranus. But William Herschel, he has been credited for coining the name asteroid, but it turns out that the word originated by this Greek scholar, modern Greek scholar, who was the son of a friend of Herschel. And the historical record now has actually been corrected due to some research by an asteroid scholar, Clifford Cunningham. And there's, once again, actually, we're looking at it now, it's a really interesting post in our community perspectives. If any of our viewers out there are word nerds like myself.
Paul, I think you should give yourself a little more credit when it comes to history. You nailed it this time. So you said there were tens of thousands of asteroids and that number
Yeah.
changing all the time. So can I assume that what makes this one so newsworthy is its proximity?
Absolutely. But apart from that remarkable close approach, I mean, there we're seeing it again. Now, the stars in the background are looking a little bit elongated because we've got these high winds at the moment, Jerry. But there it is, the long streak. That is our target tonight. And this incredible close approach tonight is the biggest thing that makes this particular asteroid newsworthy. But it's also categorized as an Apollo asteroid. And so a group of I think it's 8,311. And once again, that also changes on a daily basis. And there's 8,311 near-Earth asteroids. And they were named after this one, this single asteroid, which was called 1862. That's not when it was discovered, but it was the first, it was the 1862th asteroid discovered. And it was named Apollo. And that asteroid was discovered in the 30s, I think it was. Now, many of the asteroids from this group are kind of large enough and can come close enough to Earth to be also categorized as potentially hazardous asteroids. And there, as this morning's count on that, there are currently known 1,843 known potentially hazardous asteroids. And the vast majority of those are in this category, just like our target tonight, of the Apollo asteroids. And one of the more infamous members, actually, of the Apollo family, Jerry, that you may have heard of before, it's from your country. It's known as the Hodges Meteorite. Now, this is a nice bit of history. Now, 30th of November, 1954, saw the first verified case of a human being injured by a space rock. Now, picture this scene, Jerry. There's a lady named Anne Hodges, and she's sitting quietly in her living room in Alabama, sorry. My geography wasn't very good either. But then, suddenly, this softball-sized 9-pound chunk of space rock crashed through her roof, bounced off her radio, and smashed into her side, leaving her with some really bad bruising. But other than the bruising, she was all right. But that wasn't the end of the matter. Good old USA. I know you like a bit litigious over there, aren't you? So this battle ensued, all right, over the ownership of this meteorite between Hodges and her landlord, because she was actually she was renting the property. And Hodges finally won the custody of this thing and eventually actually donated it to the Alabama Museum of Natural History, where people can still go and see it today. I haven't seen that one. I normally track these kind of things down. It's kind of a nerdy thing that I do. But the meteorite's orbit was eventually, so that meteorite, when it hit the ground and hit her, it was traced back to an Apollo asteroid named 1685 Toro. And it's thought that the Hodges meteorite was actually a fragment of that. So nice little bit of history there, I thought.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. It's also interesting to think that there's the potential out there, potentially hazardous, Paul. So we know that some asteroids or meteorites, rather, have impacted Earth. Any other noteworthy Apollo asteroids?
Ooh, well, long-time Slooh members will remember we were covering another really, really close pass of another asteroid, actually, that was discovered in 2012. It was called 2012 DA14. And it was even closer than this one tonight, and we can see it. Just to point out to viewers who are seeing that, by the way, it was the little light dot, the light line that was whizzing through there. But this is it. On the same day that we were tracking that asteroid, the Chelyabinsk meteor, and that's the one that exploded over the Russian city of Chelyabinsk. And that was all on the 15th of February, 2013. Now, we know that that, too, was an Apollo-class asteroid. roughly the same size as the one we're tracking tonight, about 20 meters across and weighing about 1,000 tons. It's the same size, as I say, of TC4. Now, human injury was fortunately limited on that one to an estimated 1,000 people, mainly from cuts from shattered window glass, actually, Jerry, because
Hmm.
people saw it in the sky, but the sonic boom, which was actually the cause of breaking windows, only happened minutes after. So everybody was running to the windows to see what this thing was looking like. Seconds later, bang, the sonic boom actually blows all of the glass in. But there, Jerry, there is our target tonight. There it is, whizzing by Earth at this remarkably fast speed and incredibly close. It's that white line just left of center against those fixed background of stars, looking really cool.
Well, Paul, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough, as a matter of fact. A nice history lesson and way to set the stage
Thank you very
for,
much.
for tonight's program. We'll talk to
Good.
you soon.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right. Coming up after a very short break, we're going to be joined by our own Dr. Paige Godfrey, who will tell us much more about the science behind this asteroid and what the Slooh community does to keep us all safe. So stick around. Okay.
Slooh, your interface to outer space. We monitor and broadcast exciting developments from the Space Situation Room so you can witness the most amazing celestial moments with expert guests sharing their visions of the sky. Let us take you to worlds beyond our own.
And welcome back, everybody. Well, now that we've met its family, just who is this 2012 TC4? Dr. Paige Godfrey, Slooh's Director of Research, is here to help us answer that question. As we welcome Paige to the program. Paige.
I'm here.
Paige, where are you? There she
Right
is. All
here.
right. How you doing? All right. Hey, listen, can you give us an up close and personal of 2012 TC4, please?
I will do my best because, as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that are unknown about it. So we have estimates on like its size and its distance and speed, but they are just estimates until it gets to its closest approach where we can make the final constraints. But so of its first unknown is its diameter, which is estimated to be between about 50 to 100 feet. Could be a little bit smaller than 50, but it's definitely smaller than the size of a football field. You can think of it that way. It's part of the Apollo's group of asteroids, which means that it crosses over Earth's orbit around the sun. So it crosses as we orbit the sun, it crosses through. And it has an orbital period of about 609 days. So it goes around the sun every 2 years-ish, a little less, at a speed of what we're estimating to be 17,000 miles per hour. So it's pretty fast. And you can see in our awesome feeds, I'm sorry, I cannot stop looking at these feeds. I've got slooh.com up on my own computer while I'm like talking to you guys, and I just keep clicking through the feeds and taking pictures. I don't have words. This is so cool. This is one of the longest trails I've seen of tracking on our cameras before, and it's just incredible. Anyway, I'll get back to what I was talking about. So TC4 is passing between us and the moon at a distance of about 26,000 miles. Again, another estimate, but it's not going to hit Earth. So the moon, though, if you want to reference how far up 26,000 miles is, the moon is 239,000 miles away. So 26,000 miles is actually pretty darn close because the moon is over 200,000 miles away. If we want to do another comparison, though, we can think of coming up from Earth. We talk about low Earth orbit a lot, which is an area where we have a lot of satellites orbiting Earth, and that's about 1,200 miles up. so a little over 1,000 miles. And the International Space Station orbits Earth at just 250 miles above our surface. So 26,000 miles for TC4 to fly by us is really, really close, but it's definitely, it's not going to bump into the space station or anything. So it's also about 10,000 miles further out than our belt of communication satellites. So we also don't have to worry about anything like that happening. So there's no threat to our safety. There's also no threat to our communication satellites or our precious International Space Station. So there's no need to worry about that. We have teeny asteroids, like really, really small ones, much smaller than this, a lot of which go unnoticed because they're so small and hard to see, that make close approaches between us and our moon a few dozen times a year. So the idea of a space rock flying between the moon and us isn't that uncommon, but an asteroid of this size only comes between us and our moon at a rate of about 1 every 2 years. So that is pretty more uncommon.
Well, I had 2 questions for you, Paige, and you answered them both. The second question would have been, is 2012 TC4 a threat to us? You've already said it's not. So we're going to say goodbye to you for the time being, and we will check back with you in just a few minutes, okay?
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, coming up next on this special asteroid show, it's Tricia Ennis, our arts and culture correspondent here at Slooh, to tell us some of the ways that we've shown these types of amazing celestial events in our artwork over the years and how people have processed the previously inexplicable or unknown. We'll be right back with that.
Slooh, your interface to outer space. Here, you'll find a vibrant global community of fellow Earthlings together searching for what's out there, controlling high-powered telescopes on missions to see and understand all that lies beyond our planet. So gather with us around the looking glass.
And welcome back to Slooh, everybody. We're joined now by our arts and culture correspondent, Tricia Ennis, to talk about some of our friendly asteroids flying by and some ways that artists have interpreted asteroids and more in the night sky. Tricia, asteroids are in sci-fi master Arthur C. Clarke's words, the hammers of God. What can you tell us about them?
Well, I can't tell you a lot about the science of asteroids. You've got scientists for that. But I can tell you that we've got kind of a spooky reputation with asteroids when it comes to things like books or short stories, or especially things like TV and film. As Paul already said, we only really discovered them a little over 200 years ago in 1801 with the discovery of Ceres, which was actually first thought to be a planet. But their primary reputation is generally pretty negative for us. We tend to think of them as big destroyers. I mean, like you said, Arthur C. Clarke called them the hammers of God. And you don't really think of hammers as being necessarily great things to get hit with. Just thinking.
Yeah,
but I think most of us, and I know myself included, probably first learned about asteroids as in terms of things like the Chicxulub crater, which is the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. So it's a pretty difficult introduction to shake, I think.
So how else have they been creatively or artistically interpreted, Trish?
Well, it depends on exactly what you're talking about. So in literature, for example, like you mentioned earlier, British writer and astronomer Pippa Goldschmidt, who wrote a short story featuring a near-Earth asteroid. It's called How Accurate Do You Need to Be, parentheses, to Get On in Life, from her 2015 short story collection, The Need for Better Regulation of Outer Space. The stories all combine science and an understanding of human impulses, seamlessly, so they could only really be written by an astronomer turned writer. And it's actually usually really fun to get stories that are written by people who really know the science behind the material. You get something like The Martian, which is written by someone who also really understood the science of trying to grow potatoes on Mars, things like that. Now, if you haven't read her work yet, you can actually remedy that on Slooh's website, which is really cool. We have actually been able to offer this short story on our community perspectives section, as well as an interview with Dr. Goldschmidt about her work that is really interesting. Her insights into writing and science are actually pretty fascinating. But beyond her work, I think a lot of us are probably pretty familiar with a 1943 French fable called The Little Prince or Le Petit Prince. That's probably the most well-known literary work to feature an asteroid. It's just a little children's book, but it's really, really popular. And in the little novella, it's a pilot, that little cute guy, stranded in the desert, who meets a young prince who has fallen to Earth from an asteroid called B612. And it's an example of life imitating art. A real asteroid was named after the fictional one in the story. I'm going to pronounce this so wrong. 46610. Besidues. I'm not a French speaker, Jerry. I apologize. But it was discovered in 1993. And it's actually French for B612. So that's what that means. I'm not gonna try that again. There's also an asteroid
Please
that's named for the author. No one wants to hear me speak French. It's really bad.
Obviously.
It's insultingly terrible, actually. There's another asteroid named for the author, and an asteroid's moon is named Petit Prince. And actually, another fun fact is that the organization B612, which is working on trying to track near-Earth asteroids, is named after the asteroid from this short story. And then there's also like a sinister reputation of asteroids that seeped into popular culture. And you can actually find it in things like as unexpected as the Sherlock stories. So Professor Moriarty, who's Sherlock's arch nemesis, was, as Arthur Conan Doyle wrote in The Valley of Fear, known to the public only as author of The Dynamics of an Asteroid, which is a book that ascends to such rarefied heights of pure mathematics that it is said there was no man in the scientific press capable of criticizing it. It seemed pretty fitting to Conan Doyle for a criminal mastermind to have actually authored a book about asteroids that sort of reveals a lot about their spooky reputation. And there are actually asteroids named after both Sherlock and Dr. Watson, is one word. Which is really fun. We've actually named a lot of asteroids after authors, and in some ways stories too, because we also have asteroids named after Nabokov, who is the author of Lolita, and Franz Kafka. So.
And then, of course, Tricia, we've got modern pop culture. I've seen more than a few movies about asteroids.
There's several movies about asteroids, at least featuring asteroids, if not directly about the asteroids. And then there's also TV shows that feature a lot of asteroids too. So it's sort of become like a Hollywood trope where they appear all the time and they sort of become self-referential. So you have disaster movies like Armageddon, which is a little sciencey. Not super sciencey. I mean, I don't know that we would ever actually send oil drillers to an asteroid to help us, but we should definitely send Bruce Willis, is my opinion. And then actually one of my favorite movies is, it's a romantic comedy about the end of the world called Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. And that's actually about sort of like how humanity reacts when we find out that we're going to be hit with an asteroid that's going to kill us all.
Is that Steve Carell?
That is. It's Steve Carell and Keira Knightley, and it's awesome, actually, in my opinion, anyway. I'm a big fan of that movie. I watch it a couple times a year, I think. And then there's also things like, let's see, what else is there? One of my favorite asteroid movies is actually Deep Impact, which, surprisingly enough, is actually based on the short story by Arthur C. Clarke that you mentioned when you introduced me, which is the Hammer of the Gods story. But in the movie, it's not an asteroid, it's a comet. They changed it up a little bit to make it bigger and scarier. And but that's a really fun one. It came out at the same time as Armageddon, so you can duke it out as to which one you think is better. Personally, I'm going to go with the one that features Morgan Freeman as the president and Taya Leone. But that's just me. And there's also plenty of TV shows. There are episodes of Stargate SG-1 that feature asteroid impacts. And there's actually there are a couple TV shows on right now that feature sort of different versions of asteroids. So you get something like this show called Salvation that was on over the summer. That's about how Earth would react to finding out there's an asteroid on the way. We don't react well, in case you're wondering. We like to send nukes at them and also find ways to sort of save humanity, which is what Deep Impact is about. And then there was also a show that I really like called The Expanse, which is on Sci-Fi. It's based on a series of novels by a writer duo, actually, that goes by James S.A. Corey, who have posited that the asteroid belt in between Mars and Jupiter would actually sort of be our first stepping stone to further exploration of outer space. So the asteroid belt actually becomes a minefield for, and by minefield, I don't mean blowing up, I mean mining, a mining field, where we send mining crews to actually mine these asteroids for resources that we can then use to explore the solar system. So they actually have outposts on Eros and Ceres, where they, mine ore that we need and water, because asteroids are full of all sorts of interesting minerals and things. And it's actually a little bit reality. There are groups that are talking about trying to get out to asteroids or to capture asteroids for these purposes. And that's actually really cool, if you ask me.
Yeah, well, listen, as Paul said, they are potentially hazardous, and that's why we love them.
They are.
Fascinating.
Potentially
Trisha,
hazardous,
thank
but
you
also
so much.
potentially. Thank you very much.
All right, after this short break, we're going to have a special clip of an interview we recorded earlier today with some cultural experts from Sparks and Honey regarding space trends and asteroids. Don't miss it. Stay with us.
Slooh, your interface to outer space. We monitor and broadcast exciting developments from the Space Situation Room so you can witness the most amazing celestial moments with expert guests sharing their visions of the sky. Let us take you to worlds beyond our own.
And we are back. Earlier today, I spoke with Eve Pollitt and Anna Sophia Martin from the cultural foresight agency Sparks and Honey about their latest culture forecast called Exploration Innovation Brought Down to Earth. They publish these reports periodically about the current state of popular culture, predicting future trends. So, asteroids. They have had a pretty negative reputation or connotation in popular culture for a while. And I'm thinking about disaster movies and science fiction. But your focus in this report is entirely on their usefulness as potential future sources of minerals and metals. And I found that to be fascinating. Can you discuss that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, certainly asteroids have been depicted as this giant, flying, scary thing in the sky that we don't understand, and that can come down and obliterate all of us at any second. But what we're seeing when we really look into the future from a cultural lens is more not this idea of fear, but more of abundance, that these are potentially huge resources that we can tap into from a mining perspective, but also something that's inspiring awe in all of us. It's something that we can look to in other worlds and understand that there's a universe that's greater than us that we can tap into.
All right. We're going to jump over to asteroid mining now. And your report states that the resources of space can help advance our energy capabilities on the ground. Is that realistic given the technology and how much it would cost?
So right now, the technology is very costly. Every time we launch something up into space, it's great because it makes it cheaper, or we learn something, or we learn how to bring the costs down. So right now, very expensive. We've never actually mined an asteroid before. We might not for another 10 to 20 years. And we're very, very conscious of that. However, the different technologies that are developed from companies like Planetary Resources, that received, over 20 million pound investment from the country of Luxembourg. Those types of technologies they're developing will enable us to complete goals with energy and abundance here on the ground. So the robotics that are developed for mining can also be used for fishing here on Earth. And there are so many other applications that it will allow for, whether it's not happening for another 10 to 20 years, it will allow for incredible advancement here on Earth. We've already seen incredible abundance with solar energy. In our report, we talk about how every minute there are 126 solar panels that are added here in the US. Solar energy outperformed fossil fuels for the first time in 2016. So we're already seeing such an incredible abundance from that. So maybe not asteroids, but the technology that's being developed to eventually mine them is something that is really transforming the way that we get our resources here on Earth.
Staying with asteroids for a moment, there seems to be real promise behind the idea of asteroids or the moon, in fact, as staging areas for space travel. Can you elaborate on that, Eve?
Absolutely. So we refer to asteroids and, the moon, or the cislunar space station that was just announced, a collaboration with Russia and the US and many other countries that will have a cislunar space station, quite like the ISS outside the moon. We refer to them as gas stations, kind of tongue in cheek in our report, because they will enable us, whether it's an asteroid or the moon, they have specific resources, like whether it's minerals or water, that allow us to use the hydrogen for fuel, allow us to use reef there as kind of a way to get to the next step. It's going to Mars next, or going to potentially another planet to study it after that. So they will absolutely become, we will have a presence in the 2020s in cislunar orbit. We will have a presence eventually on asteroids in order to use them as these stopping points to explore further. And technology that's developed for those stopping points, or our learnings from going to those stopping points, will create incredible advancement, not only in space exploration, but here. So it's an exciting time. There have been a lot of announcements lately. The International Astronautical Congress just happened in Australia. Elon announced a lot of SpaceX goals for the year. A lot of different companies announced their goals. The National Space Council just met for the first time in 25 years last week and talked about going to the moon. So a lot of conversation and a lot of excitement around this topic.
If you are interested in reading the entire report, it'll be available at reports.sparksandhoney.com in a few days, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Okay, time to welcome Dr. Paige Godfrey back to the program. Paige, once again, just so I can sleep tonight, the big question: how much of a threat is 2012 TC4 to planet Earth?
Well, Jerry, I'm happy to say you can sleep tonight. It is not considered a threat. Astronomers only very recently, though, were certain of its path past Earth. Don't say that 5 times fast. So we know that it's only coming within about 26,000 miles tonight, but originally calculations revealed by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory back in July indicated that it could pass as close as 4,200 miles. So really, really close. But fortunately, that's not happening, and it's not going to hit. Further observation in later July and August updated this estimate, and it's definitely in our favor. So it's rated a negative 3.66 on something called the Palermo scale. We've all heard of the Richter scale, which is used to measure the magnitude of earthquakes, but the Palermo scale is used by astronomers to gauge the potential danger of impact from a near Earth object. If you're into logarithms, we have a post explaining this scale in our community post section on our website. What you need to know is that this asteroid has been rated negative 3.66, which indicates a low probability of impact. We have values from -2 to 0, which indicate a merit for careful monitoring. And if there's a positive value given to an object, it's cause for concern. So this is a negative value and it's below 2, so low probability of impact. But actually, even if it impacted Earth, it's small enough that it would be unlikely to cause any major damage. It's roughly the size of the Chelyabinsk meteor that exploded over Russia back in 2013. And that only caused damage and injuries because it happened to be overpopulated area. So Paul talked earlier a little bit about the shock wave crashing windows and injuring people. And it did injure about 1,500 people and it destroyed about 7,000 buildings. But that's because of where it hit over. So most of Earth's surface is water and uninhabited land. So the chances of serious destruction are really not too bad for something of this size, statistically.
Okay, so no need to call the Avengers just yet. Now here at Slooh, one of our missions is to open space up to everyone. Our members, of course, have an impressive legacy of tracking asteroids. What can new Slooh members do to get involved, Paige?
Absolutely. Slooh astronomer members can definitely get involved. You can join tracking training programs to be able to submit observations of asteroid tracking to the IAU Minor Planet Center by the end of the training program, which is run by our actual Slooh astronomer members themselves. They have a great active team, and then you'll be able to submit real submissions to the Minor Planet Center. You can become an astronomer member in the left-hand navigation toolbar on our website, where it's also that you'll find the astronomer discussion boards, which you can use to get involved in these training programs and meet the asteroid tracking team members. For example, Bernd Lukenhoner, one of our main comet hunting and tracking members, has recently recovered the periodic comet 59P on its latest venture into the inner solar system on the 11th of September, just last month. This comet hasn't been seen since 2011, and one of our own Slooh members recovered it. Pretty awesome. That could be you.
It is. All right, Paige. Thank you, and by the way, thank you for the good news as well. Have a good time. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right. Listen, we have a remarkable program planned for Sunday. Paige will be talking with the folks behind Project Blue with their mission to take the first picture of an Earth-like planet in the neighboring Alpha Centauri star system. And this will be of particular interest to Slooh's community of citizen scientists. In the next few weeks, we'll be live streaming the Orionids meteor shower. And the night before Halloween, it's a show we're calling Monsterlations. Monsterlations. Don't forget that Slooh's inaugural writing contest, the Fenimore Cooper Prize for Eclipse Writing, is accepting submissions until the end of December. And we established this contest to celebrate August's transcontinental solar eclipse, and it's open to original short stories, poetry, and essays. Check out the website for details. But you can always look through our telescopes, snap pictures for your gallery, share your thoughts or creative output in community perspectives, or chat with us on our discussion boards. And that's all for tonight. Thanks for joining us to track this latest near-Earth asteroid as its orbit takes it safely away from us. I'm Jerry Montes. Thanks for stopping by. You've been watching Slooh, your interface to outer space.